Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back for some more EVE Online. Today's video is going to be a discussion video because I want to talk a little bit about the surgical strike update which should have come to the game like yesterday when I released this video, and then I also want to take a little bit of a look at what other information we have on the next chapter on Eclipse that should be coming in the upcoming weeks and months. So as always, if you want to read the dev blog for yourself, I highly recommend that you do that. You can go to eveonline.com, you can click on the articles link that brings you to the articles website, and down here we have the dev blogs with, at the time of recording, Surgical Strike coming April 15th being the latest dev blog. So let's get started with that one. It's actually a dev blog that doesn't really bring anything too new to the game. It changes some stuff, but in a very big way that is going to impact all players in EVE Online, in my opinion. So the aim here is basically focused on PvP, I believe. I feel like this is really aimed at decreasing survivability, at decreasing the chance that you end up in a stalemate and that you have more destruction in PvP in general in EVE Online, because the biggest change coming this update is a 20% reduction in the power of all modules that increase shield and armor resistances. So if you didn't know about this, and you suddenly find that your mission ship is taking a lot more damage, or your exploration ship is struggling, or your conduit runner, or especially your abyssal dead space running ship is you know, maybe you lost one because you didn't know about these changes. This is pretty massive, and I can understand the goal in PvP because this will hit larger ships a lot more. It will also reduce the effectiveness of logistics, but for the PvE side of things, I really do wonder if this will not become a pretty big problem, especially for the high-end PvE stuff. I mean, in wormhole space, those sleepers, they're nothing to laugh at. You've got the abyssal content. I think that is always, you know, especially in tier 4, tier 5, that there's always this risk, and you're just making that bigger. Even mission ships and incursions, all of these could really be impacted quite a lot. 20% reduction in the power of all modules that increase shield and armor resistances. Every single player is going to be impacted by that, and I don't know, I understand the design philosophy behind that, but on the other hand, I feel like these modules already have very severe diminishing returns, so using more and more of them was always less and less effective. It was always already a little bit of a give and take. Do you want more utility or more shield resistance? Do you want more damage or more armor resistance? You always already had to strike that balance, and now it's just going to be harder to get that tank to what you would like to have, to what you feel comfortable running PvE content in. On the other hand, of course, yeah, the goal here is mostly to hit capital and super capitals, and then to reduce their HP and thus reduce the effectiveness of logistics as well, which will just have a harder time keeping these ships alive. This is the kind of shakeup that rewards those that adapt quickly. So go get to theory crafting. Although I must say there's definitely some limitations on that in PvE. I mean, those Triglavians, they do a lot of damage. So something that I will definitely have to look at is what's the impact of this on my PvE activities. Do I need to change things up? I may need to make updates on some of my videos, but that's basically the largest worry here. I think somewhere in this dev blog is also mentioned that if it turns out that there's some real problems in the PvE activities as well, they'll look into that. But for now, yeah, they're not gonna change anything. We'll have to do with lower resistances. Now, that's not the only thing that's going to happen to the capital, to the larger ships, capitals and super capitals, because they're being hit on all sides this time. Let's take a look at that. Removal of support fighter tubes for super carriers with the addition of one extra heavy fighter tube, obviously aimed at you know, limiting what they can do against smaller targets. Bonuses to excel plates and extenders for super carriers reduced to 200% and for titans to 300%. I wish that they would put put the number it comes from so that we can also judge the size of the nerf if we are not familiar with these ships, which I'm not. Never owned a Super or a Titan. I would not know what the numbers are now for this XL plate, for these XL plates, but they're being nerfed. So again, less HP, less survivability. Long range heavy fire explosion radius increased by 50%. I believe that is the same thing as the first one. It means that smaller targets get hit less effectively by the larger explosion radius. Short range heavy fire speed increased by 50%, probably to like close the distance so that they are a bit more effective. They may be underperforming now, again something I don't really know about. Fighter base size increased, probably to bring these two ships in line. And then this is also a very big one, capital capacitor boosters limited to 1 per ship. That of course is aimed at the faxes mostly, I think, although it could be on any ship. That is again going to limit your staying power, limit your ability to keep repping stuff up. And the goal is in larger fights with capitals, with super capitals, they want less of a stalemate and then a one-sided outcome where one side can basically tank all the damage and the other side loses and is forced to retreat, to something where there will be destruction on all sides, which is really the goal, I think, in PvP here in general. See more stuff blow up, and you can see that as a positive. On the other hand, CCP has actually been going in the opposite direction all of a sudden. You could say like late last year when they announced we're changing things when it comes to your self-reliability, the survivability of fighters, of large ships, and how much ISK you can make from them. Rorcal nerfed a lot. We don't want abundance, we now want shortages. All of that is a 180, and this is basically also a big 180 on risk averseness. Now all of a sudden they really want to bring that. They don't want you to be able to basically be self-sustaining and to be able to make lots of stuff so that losses become next to meaningless. Nope, now all of a sudden it's all about you've got to risk it. Risk-averse players are going to find their preferred playstyles definitely challenged with all of this. So while I don't live in nullsec, I'm really curious as to see what the impact there is going to be. Now for the subcapitals, we also have some changes, and this one is the reason why I think that the rattlesnake will be fine, and more than fine. I think it is going to become one of the best PvE platforms by a large margin, and could then end up in the nerf bats aim as well, because all Tech 1 battleships, including faction hulls, receive 10% increase to base HP. And if you follow any of my videos, you know that I have this passive rattlesnake that's built around HP regeneration. So as much as HP as possible to increase that HP a second. And this is just gonna, I think make up for the resistance loss by quite a bit. And also 30% increase to scan resolution will of course help in the emerging conduits, for instance, to target those small Triglavian ships that much more quickly. While on the other hand, some other PvE options that I have tried and used for the emerging conduit, for instance, like an active armor tank Vindicator. It's gonna be more risky without resistance. Tech 1 battleships really rely on a decent resistance boost through modules in the right types in order to survive that Triglavian damage, while this passive shield tank rattlesnake I think will just stay on its level. So a buff to Tech 1 battleships in general, but the faction hulls will probably be the biggest winner there by a mile. Then we get some specific changes. The Munin is being nerfed. Again, I would love to see where it comes from so that we have a better idea of how big the nerf is, but the Eagle also loses some velocity and power grid. The Loki is being nerfed a little bit. The Legion is being nerfed a little bit on power grid. So in general here we've got some meta ships that are being targeted. Hopefully this will change things up a little bit as well. It's going to be very interesting to see what all of this means in EVE Talk and for the market. And then we get the Demos, which is a brawling ship in my opinion. That one gets a buff. Hybrid damage from heavy assault cruiser skill increased to 7.5% per level. And overall, additionally, damage from bombs will be reduced by 20% to roughly match the loss in effective HP associated with resist module change. So 20% less HP in PvE in the Abyss, for instance, that is going to be very, very tricky to balance. But we'll see. The player base is very inventive. Perhaps we'll see some awesome options jump out, of course. And then finally, well, why are they boosting or buffing the demos? They want a Brawler's Paradise. So right now the meta is definitely favoring kitey stuff, risk-averse stuff, gotta be honest here. And they want to try to bring back the Brawler's Paradise, but the option that they chose is somewhat weird for me personally. There will be an increase to the damage of close range Tech 2 ammo, excluding exotic plasma, by 15%. This means Conflagration, Hail, Rage, and of course Void. So this will help ganking by quite a lot. Not only do all those a lot of those transport ships lose HP, because of the resistance changes, their ganking ships with Void in it, like the Catalyst, will get 15% buff in damage. This is going to be very interesting on that front. But in general, if you want more brawling, I don't think damage output is necessarily the problem. I think speed is the problem. Having to close the distance is often just the real problem when it comes to trying to catch some of the existing kitey metas at the moment. So I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to bring people back to a brawling meta, to have that become a little bit more dominant than what we see at the moment. It's definitely going to help gankers, but for some PvE options, you could also see this as a boost. I mean, if my Vindicator then uses Void and gets a 15% increase in damage output as well, we might just sometimes two-shot some of these double web targets rather than three-shot them. It's a very difficult balancing act here. Even some really interesting ships like the Megatron and like the Dominix can have blasters, can be fit for brawling, and perhaps this could be the answer for PvE. While your HP is nerfed, perhaps your damage can be boosted enough with the right fit and the right ammo so that you can make up for that with a little bit of speed as well. So flying your ship may become far more important as well. So yeah, the Surgical Strike update should have been out by now, by the time that you guys get to see this video. Pretty interesting stuff. The goal is pretty clear, but will the player base react as SCP hopes and expects? I'm really not sure. Risk averseness is a real thing. I think just in general amongst people, even for myself, I mean, I'm not really a destruction kind of guy. I'm more of a construction kind of guy. I'm a PvE Care Bear. So for me, it's all about what the impact is on the PvE side of things. But well, we'll have to do with it. It's a new challenge, and it could be very interesting. This might actually open up some brawling PvE fits for me personally. So we'll see if all of that works out. And then for the second part of the video, I want to take a look at this. I think this is the update website. Well, it's actually, if you click down here, Eclipse shifting the balance of power, and then find out more. It's not on the updates website, but here is some of the stuff that we get there. Eclipse, so you get a trailer, awesome trailer. If you want to watch it, you can do that here. Then we've got the hunt, of course, that's been going on. I love this one. Really very nice activity. A little bit of descanning, decently challenging, but especially for an Omega established player, not that difficult to find the right ship for it, and pretty damn rewarding, bringing some geckos back to the market. So that one is dropping in price substantially, which, oh, by the way, that should be my next EVE talk extra, so let's write that down. There we go, a little bit of on-the-fly preparation for EVE talk. Then we get a Surgical Strike update, which we just took a look at. But after that, Capsular Generosity Celebration. All right, all about Plex for Good. Pretty cool, but here's what I actually wanted to get to. Invasion Chapter 3 coming in May. So in May, Eclipse is only the start of seismic changes hurtling towards the denizens of New Eden. Chapter 3 of the Triglavian Invasion storyline is set to unfold, with players influencing the outcome of a star-spanning conflict. The landscape of New Eden will never be the same again. And now, not only do we get lots of changes now with the balancing, you know, that will make it a lot harder to live in New Eden. On top of that, it looks like the Triglavians are going to go to their next phase, and that this will have an impact across the universe, where we ourselves will probably be able to choose a side, right? Do you want to help the Empires, or do you want to help the Triglavians? I am honestly very, very curious to see what this will be, how it will play out, what the players will choose, and you know, what kind of activities and fun, maybe even cool story stuff that we can find in there. I always hope for live events to come back. But if they can just have some awesome stuff happening on the server that has, you know, and that's what we're expecting here. The landscape of New Eden will never be the same again, so that will have, you know, impacts on the on the EVE Online sandbox world that will remain. You know, not like a temporary anomaly. You run it, it's gone, then it respawns, but something that's far more permanent. Very, very cool, and I definitely don't want to miss that. And then after that, well, there will be more events, etc. when it comes to the Eclipse. But yeah, cool stuff coming in May. I personally can't wait to find out more and to see what actually happens there. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.